Good morning. Good morning. It's another good day to be alive. I'm Chad Peavy. I want to let you know you can get a free copy of my book at my website. I've been thinking a lot lately about the idea of love, particularly the love that I have for myself. I've been trying to work out how I can be more compassionate toward myself. But love is complex. I'm not sure that it's supposed to be, but it most definitely is. And I think the complexity comes from how we receive love or we didn't, how we receive love now or we don't. I shared in my book, Break and Untangle, some of the abuse I experienced as a kid, particularly from my dad. Both physical and emotional, he beat the hell out of me. Emotionally, he tortured me. And I don't use that word hyperbolically. And yet, my dad told me that he loved me all the time. All the time. We could be driving down the road, no one talking, and he would say, I love you. We could be watching TV, and out of the blue, he would just say, I love you. What a strange love this was. I experienced love from my mother very, very differently. She also told me that she loved me. I wasn't neglected in that way. Usually when we were going to bed and we were saying our goodnights, there was an I love you in there. But I was never abused by my mom. I felt affection from my mom in the way that I never experienced with my dad. At church, I was told that Jesus loved me. Well, Jesus might love me if I followed all the rules, and God had written my name in some imaginary book before the world began. My religion said Jesus died for the elect, the chosen, few, who were predestined to go to heaven. So I didn't have a lot of say in the matter. You're either in or you're out, and that was determined before you were born. The Almighty himself had a very conditional love, and also a love that was determined way before I ever came along. This is a very confusing kind of love. We get a lot of cues from our society about how lovable we are as individuals, whether that's how we look or how much money we have or what we do for a living or where we went to school or what color our skin is or who or how we love. We send and receive a lot of cues to one another through our culture about what's lovable and what's not. So, as I've been trying to work out how to love myself more, I'm realizing that love, in my experience, has been very, very complex. It's been very hard for me to distill down into one simple idea about what that is. And, by the way, not just loving yourself, but how do you love somebody else? Sure, I feel things for other people. I think that's love. But then how do I show it? Do I need to set impossibly high standards for them? Maybe toy with their emotions a little bit every once in a while? Is that what I'm supposed to do? Is that what love is? Is that how we show love? I don't know. So I look around for cues. I try to see how other people who seem to have loving relationships, I try to see what they do. I study them and I try to mimic that. But then, okay, I can figure that part out. How then do I love myself? For me, that love has taken on the form of the loves that I was taught. So I have abused myself. I torture myself emotionally. I've told you about how harsh my inner critic is. I don't show myself any sort of self-compassion. And when I do have things going along pretty well, I end up sabotaging myself just to keep myself in check. Don't get too big for your britches, as my granny used to say. I set impossibly high standards for myself. I'm incredibly hard on myself in an attempt to be perfect. But then I also indulge myself. I treat myself from time to time. All these things are true, but are they love? I don't know. I don't have kids. I've been told that that is the purest form of love, to have kids. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's the purest form of love, but that hasn't been my experience. My dad certainly doesn't love me, and I don't think ever really did. Maybe for some people, though, that's how they experience love. Honestly, I think I would probably live, if I had kids, I would probably live in sort of this oscillating area of expectation and disappointment. I think that's probably where I would live with a kid. Expectation and disappointment. So again, I find myself searching for models, role models for love. How do I know how to do this for others? How do I know how to do this with myself? Now, you may think that what I'm about to share with you is very silly, and maybe it is. But the purest form of love that I think I've had in my whole life was for a dog named Bailey. I've just never experienced love like this. She was a standard poodle. I got her when she was 6 weeks old, and I've never known that kind of love except with that dog. And I know that that may sound silly to some of you. And the apex of that love was on May 10th, 2024 at 3 p.m. when she died. She had been sick, and we tried to make the most, we had to make the most of painful decision that you have to make. But we got to do it at home on the balcony, which was her favorite spot, and I got to hold her in my arms. What an intimate, precious life experience this was. And she had her nose snuggled up to my ear, and I could feel her breath. And then I didn't. It was the purest form of love I've ever known. And as she passed, what I kept saying to her was thank you. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for choosing me. When she was a puppy, I went to see the litter, and there were, a bunch of them. And she was the one that came up, and she crawled right up into my lap. And that was it. That was destiny. She chose me. And so as she's passing, I kept saying, thank you for choosing me. I don't think that any of us have passed this way in this life by accident. One of my favorite quotes is by a French Jesuit priest. His name was Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. And my favorite quote from one of my favorite quotes of all times, he said, "We are not human beings who have spiritual experiences. We are spiritual beings who have a human experience." I believe, my personal belief, is there's a reason that each of us comes into this world. And I'm of the mind that on some cosmic level, we choose this time, this place, to be with these people. I think on some level, the spirit that's in me chose that small town in Arkansas, and I think it chose that mom, and I think it chose that dad, and I don't think that was an accident. I think that was intentional, so that we can learn what it is that we need to learn this time through. Am I right about how that works? Who the hell knows, and who cares? It's working for me right now. But if that's the case, if that's how I'm choosing to look at it, then I think that Bailey was here to teach me and give me a role model for love. I think she gave me a chance to practice on her what I could be practicing on myself. That deep sense of gratitude that comes from my spirit for choosing this human being that we all call Chad. I think just like Bailey crawled on my lap, I think my spirit chose this. And I think that's worth love. I'm still figuring out how. But I don't think that's a love of narcissism or pride or arrogance. I think that's a love of compassion for the experience, compassion for the humanity. My love for that dog was not complex at all. It was a very, very simple love. There were no expectations. There were no disappointments. It was as simple as it got. And I know how silly it may sound to some of you, but I honestly hope that for myself, that I can learn to love myself like I love that dog, without the conditions, without the impossible expectations, without the unrelenting disappointment, but just experience a quiet sense of gratitude just for being here. May you have joy, peace, and happiness, good health and well-being, a life of ease and prosperity, the courage to get what you want from this life, the clarity to know what that is, the imagination to not sell yourself short, and the discipline to see it through.